Ready there?
Yep, you're live. We're ready to go.
Good evening. I'm Jerry McIntosh, and this is Our Voices, the People's Media. Tonight, we got a special guest on tonight, and we're going to get to her in a minute. But first, we'll go to our host, Mr. Bill Snow, who is the author of the great book, From the Project to the Boardroom. And Mr. Derek Scott, who is with the Black Caucus, the Democrat Party, and chair of the Democrat Party here in Escambia County. Also, Jill Lewis Daggs, who is in Okaloosa County, who is with the DNC over there. I think I'm saying that right, Emma. And also Christine Forrest, who is in Santa Rosa County. So we want to thank everybody, but Jill is going to introduce our guest tonight. First, let me just say our goal is to bring awareness and knowledge regarding politics, economics, education, health, wellness, as well as environmental issues, and any concern that impact everyday life. We know that knowledge is power, and we want to empower you with the kind of knowledge you need to make informed decisions. So I'm going to turn it over to Jill to introduce our super guest this evening.
Wow. Good evening, everyone. We are glad that you have decided to join us today. We have a phenomenal guest. I'm going to go over a shortened bio. Just know she's phenomenal, and not just phenomenal because you'll hear in just a minute. So let me just start her bio. Our Representative Fentress Driscoll, leader of the Florida House Democratic Caucus, is a native of Polk County, Florida. Minority Leader Fentress D. Driscoll was first elected to the Florida House of Representatives in November 2018. She brings common sense solutions to our state's most pressing challenges related to public education, the environment, affordable housing, social and racial justice, public safety, and economic opportunity for all. In 2022, Driscoll's peers unanimously elected her as leader of the Democratic Caucus, making her the first Black woman to lead either caucus in the Florida House. In 2023, Emily's List honored Leader Driscoll as its 10th annual Gabriel Giffords Rising Star Award recipient. Past winners of this prestigious award include former Georgia House Minority Leader Stacey Abrams, Colorado House Speaker Crisanta Duran, and U.S. Representative Ayanna Pressley. In the same year, Ruth's List, Florida, honored Leader Driscoll with its Carrie Meek Award, named after the first Black woman to serve in the Florida Senate and the first Black person to represent Florida in Congress since Reconstruction. Leader Driscoll is an attorney. She's a Harvard grad, where she was the first African-American elected to the president. She was the first African-American to be elected president of Harvard Student and Government. She is a Georgetown grad. She is phenomenal. She is light. She is fire. She is here fighting for us. I welcome you. I thank you. And Leader, it is all yours.
Well, thank you so much, Jill, for that wonderful introduction. I mean, I'm like, I just need to put Jill in my pocket and just take her with me, be my hype woman everywhere we go. Because you make me feel like I can stand a little taller. And so I thank you for that. And the reason I say it is because, we are living in some trying times. It is not easy to be a Democrat in Florida right now. I would even submit that it's difficult to be a Democrat in this nation right now, with much of what is happening. But this is why I commend you all for this show and your very earnest attempt to get information out there directly to the voters. I'll tell you, serving as leader, and I'll talk a little bit about what that role is like, but sometimes it feels like, what does it feel like? It feels like being mom, like nobody wants to tell me exactly what's going on, but then I'll hear little things through the grapevine. And my least favorite thing to hear as leader is like, well, leadership didn't even do ... It's like, don't talk about what you see your elected officials not do. Present to them what it is you want them to do, right? Because this has got to be a two-way street. It's got to be a two-way street, and we are all in this together, Democrats. So, but as was mentioned, I have the honor of leading the Florida House Democratic Caucus. So let me tell you a little bit about what that role is like. I actually get to wear two hats. You heard in Jill's introduction that I've had a lot of firsts in my life, and this is no exception. I'm the first Black woman to hold this position. I'm also the first leader since we've had term limits that gets to serve a 4-year term. So my predecessor had to step down, and I wound up fulfilling his term and my term, kind of like at the same time. So long story short, I get to be leader. I've been leader since 2022, and I have the chance to be leader through 2026. That is actually really huge for our caucus because it means we have the opportunity to have some continuity in the plans that we want to build and the change that we want to make. And a lot of times they say that Democrats have to rebuild every cycle, Republicans get to reload. Well, this time we get to reload too. This time we get to have plans and strategies that extend beyond just a 2-year cycle. And I'm so excited for that. So I wear two hats. The first is legislative. And I have the honor of leading the House Democrats on the floor and during legislative session as we fight for the people of Florida. We believe that every Floridian, regardless of your zip code, your race, where you grew up, sexual orientation, gender, whatever it is, who you love, socioeconomic status, every Floridian deserves the freedom to be healthy, prosperous, and safe. And I have watched, since I've been elected over the past 6 years, I have watched extreme legislation being put forth by Republicans that continues to try to strip us away of that freedom. And as Americans, that is a value that we really appreciate and respect. We need freedom. No one party owns that value. I feel like as Black Americans, we especially resonate with the value of freedom. And we understand that none of us is truly free until all of us are free. And so as I watch this extreme legislation, we fight and push back against that. We push back against the culture war bills. We have a governor who had the audacity to stand at a podium and say that slavery conferred a benefit on the enslaved. He had the audacity to challenge a new African-American history course, AP African-American history course, and say that it had no educational value. This is a governor who had I just keep using the word audacity. I'm sure there are other words. If I had a thesaurus, I'd find some. But to me, it's just insane. And he had the audacity to pass legislation, the quote unquote Stop Woke Act, that is impacting DE&I in the workplace and in higher education. And I always like to say that this is a governor who's so obsessed with woke that he's asleep at the wheel. Because last time I checked, none of those policies help us to be more free. None of those policies help us to be more prosperous or more healthy or more safe. So we push back against the bad culture war bills. We push back against the book bans. We try to speak truth to power to let people know what's really going on. Because I think the reality is that he and his counterparts will continue to push culture war bills like that until enough of us stand up and say, we're not taking it anymore. And the way that we do that is through voting, right? So I lead the Democrats to push back against the bad bills. I also lead us to put forward our own agenda so that we're fighting for you and putting forward good bills. I'll tell you a little bit about our policy platform. It is our Healthy, Prosperous, Safe policy platform. We have a bill that would create transparency in the property insurance market. Florida has the highest property insurance rates in the country. Out of all the 50 states, Florida has the highest, and we have some of the highest auto insurance rates. What I have seen in my 6 years is that the Republicans continue to pass these bills that result in handouts to the property insurance companies, but it doesn't help our rates come down. We had 2 special sessions and a legislative regular session to address this issue. And it basically resulted in a $3 billion with a B, $3 billion bailout to the property insurance industry. That's unacceptable while the rest of our rates are going high. Housing affordability is through the roof. So we'll also have a bill, I'm carrying this one, where it works with local government. The state has to partner with local government to try to increase affordable housing inventory because it really is a supply and demand problem. Over 20 years ago, the legislature established what's known as the Sadowski Affordable Housing Trust Fund. And I don't want to get too in the weeds. I'm a lawyer. I love weeds, but I'm not going to do that to you tonight. I'm not going to do it. All you need to know is The legislature basically said, let's put a little money aside every year so we can increase affordable housing, right? What the Republicans in control did was sweep that money year after year and then give corporate giveaways to big companies who didn't need it. And now we're facing a housing crisis. So as Democrats, we want to definitely make sure that that's not happening, but then also invest in affordable housing. We have a common sense gun ownership bill, which focuses on background checks and making sure that gun owners have to have safe storage practices. We have a bill that would expand Medicaid. This actually is huge because Florida is one of only 10 states in the country that refuses to expand Medicaid. And if we did that one simple thing, we would extend healthcare coverage to over 800,000 more Floridians. And that would help costs go down for all of us, because what happens when people don't have property or healthcare insurance is they go to the ER, the emergency room, which costs the whole system more money. And that's why our premiums go up too. We could do the compassionate thing, the right thing, and expand Medicaid and make sure that people are getting access to coverage. So these are the sort of economic issues that Democrats want to work on. If you notice, I did not mention one culture war. Nobody's trying to fight a culture war. We are tired of that. I think when I knock on doors and I talk to people in the community, they are tired of that. They want to know, what is government going to do to help make their lives better and to make sure that their kids' lives are better? So I want you to hear it directly from the source that these are the types of policies that Democrats are fighting for in the state legislature. I also get tired of hearing stuff like, oh, Democrats just want costs to go up. They just want to expand taxes. They just want to, no. It's time out for all of that. In the 6 years that I've served, I've watched Republicans do things like attack Disney, who is one of our largest employers, private employers in the state. They're no longer the party of small government and making sure that we have thriving businesses. No. Democrats occupy that space now, and it's time for the public to know that. So that's the first hat that I wear, leading our legislative fights. The second hat that I wear is political, and this one I love just as much. This means that I get to basically raise the resources and set the strategies to help us win more seats in Tallahassee. So there are 120 members of the Florida House of Representatives. Democrats make up only 35 of those members. That means that we are a little less than a third, which means that we are technically in a super minority. Being in a super minority basically means that the Republicans don't need the minority party for any votes that they take. Whether it's a majority vote or a 2/3 vote, they have the numbers to do whatever it is that they want to do. Now, why is that bad for the people, regardless of your party? It's bad because government really is set up and works best when there are checks and balances. When there's push and pull, there has to be a little friction, right? Right now, there's no friction in state government. So what you have is a governor who was so busy running for president. We see that didn't work out for him, okay? But he was so busy running for president, he just kept pushing these culture wars. And he had Republicans. Oh, go ahead.
No, I was chuckling. Go ahead.
Okay. He had Republicans in the legislature that just went along with his agenda, right? There's not enough friction. There's not enough push and pull so that we could stop some of those bad culture wars. So we need to win more seats. We need to have more Democrats in the legislature so that there is more balance. And that's part of what I get to do. And so a recent example of that actually was just in House District 35, which is in the Orlando area. We just flipped a seat from red to blue, meaning it was previously held by a Republican. Now it is held by a Democrat, Tom Keene. So the governor appointed the former representative to a position in a state college, and that left the seat open. There was a special election declared that it would be in January, but they declared the special election in September. Once that happened, my team and I put a field team on the ground to register new Democrats to vote and to re-enroll existing Democrats and to vote by mail. Let me tell you why that's important. Joe Biden won that district in 2020. And when he did, the vote by mail advantage for Democrats was around 10 points or so. When we went on the ground in September, Republicans had a 3-point advantage. But by talking to voters, knocking on doors, doing the hard work with voter registration and vote by mail re-enrollment, we took it from a +3 for Republicans to a +12 for Democrats. I need you to hear me. That is a 15-point swing. That is huge. And then we were able to take that operation and pivot and turn it into a turnout operation to make sure that people turn their ballots in. And as we were knocking on doors, there were only two issues that people really wanted to talk about. The first was abortion access and choice, because if you don't know, the Republicans passed a couple of bills that are really, really bad. There's a 15-week ban on abortion that has no exception for rape or incest, which are two of the most evil, horrible circumstances that could possibly happen to a woman. And then the second is a 6-week ban, where most women don't even know they're pregnant. And so that 6-week ban is still waiting to go into effect, depending on how a court rules. But people were very concerned about that on the doors. Democrats and independents wanted to talk about that. And then the second issue was property insurance, which I know we already covered that at the top of the hour. People are very concerned about their property insurance rates. And so we talked to the people, we told them the truth. We told them about how our candidate wanted to protect a woman's right to choose and how he wanted to work to lower property insurance rates. And we explained how it was the Republicans who had put those bad policies in place with respect to abortion and property insurance. And the people listened, and we won that district. We won independent voters by 70%, which is huge. I think that bodes well. They tried in their attack ads to tie our candidate to Joe Biden, by the way. They tried to tie him to Bidenomics, and they tried to say, oh, you know, President Biden and inflation and all of the things, and it didn't work. It didn't work. And that gives me hope for November, that people are tired of the foolishness. They are tired of the lies, and they really want a government that's going to be common sense, which, by the way, that is what Joe Biden will continue to be. And we really need to vote blue this November, because it truly is a choice between chaos and the destruction of our democracy. Like, this is where we are at. But I'm supposed to be talking about Florida, so I'm gonna rein it back in. So I get to go out and try to win these seats. So we were able to take our caucus from 35 to 36. Now we still have to win another 5 seats to get out of the super minority, but I know we can do it. We will do it because we have smart plans, because we put in the work, because we have the better policies. And we will go out and do the work and talk to the voters and win those seats. Now, let me check in with the team, because I've been talking for a while. Do y'all want me to pause at all? Because if not, I got more to say.
Well, I just want to tell you what one of our live Facebook streamers said when you're looking for another word for audacity. She said, let me help you, ignorant, stupid, and foolishness, T.D. Taylor, on our live Facebook stream.
Yes. Yes to all of that. Thank you so much for the help. I appreciate the assist.
But yes, we would love for you to keep going.
With the House, she's the House Minority Leader in the State House here in Florida. So keep going.
Please.
I listen to you all night, really.
Yeah. And I do have more to say, because just to let people know a little bit about what's been happening in Tallahassee this session, we have seen some bills that are very troubling to me. There are a couple of bills that actually are child labor bills. They want to weaken child labor protections. And this is something that should really concern us. They basically want 16-year-olds and 17-year-olds to be able to work just like 18-year-olds do. And child labor protections that have been in existence for quite some time to make sure that we're focused on our kids getting the education they deserve, a good high quality education, right? We should be letting kids be kids. And instead of paying people what they're worth, instead of investing in workers like they should, they're looking to our kids to be a cheap labor source. And I think that is wrong. There is a bill in the Senate right now. I keep hearing that it's going to be amended, but I'm not sure that it has been, that actually would allow 16 and 17-year-olds to work on scaffolding and roofs, because that's what we need, is to put our kids on roofs in the hot Florida sun. Why are we not investing in public education more to try to give them a competing chance, a fighting chance to be able to compete for the jobs of tomorrow? Florida ranks 48th in teacher pay. We don't even pay our teachers what we're worth. And so when I look at what's happening in Tallahassee, it just seems to me that the party that's in charge has really lost their North Star, right? If this is what we are doing, if we are turning to children as a labor source, you know that something has gone very, very wrong. And yet again, I watch as my caucus tries to fight for those common sense bills that would improve our lives. We just want to see people's lives better. We just want to see people not have to fight to survive all the time. We want to see people be able to thrive. So for those of you who may not know this also, legislative session lasts for 60 days. We started on January 9th and we will continue through March 8th. That will be if we end on time. If we don't end on time, they might extend it for a day or two. And during this 60-day period, there are a number of bills that will pass. We will focus on putting forward a budget for Florida that funds important programs, and there will be real policy disputes over that again. You know, right now we're trying to fight, for example, for our HBCUs to get school hardening dollars. A lot of other schools and institutions are getting these resources. Well, our HBCUs, their campuses are targets too. We saw what happened with that shooting in Jacksonville last year, that the shooter actually started out on Edward Waters College in Jacksonville. Now there's some students or folks on campus who basically frightened him away, and then he went down the street to a store, a local store, and that was horrible too. But the point that I'm making is that we need to make sure that our HBCUs are getting funded in the same way that any other institution would. And we need to protect those campuses. So that's a priority that I've been working on very hard. Also funding for sickle cell, which tends to impact Florida more because we have one of the highest populations of sickle cell patients, and it does tend to impact the Black community more. So that's something I've been honored to work on for the past few years as well. So that's legislative session. We just completed week 3, and so we still have a good 6 weeks to go. But you should know that this is the time to pay attention to what's happening in your state government, because if there are things that you see that you like or that you don't like, now is the time to reach out to your representative and your state senator and make that heard. So I want to talk a little bit too, if we could.
I think Jill had a question. Did you have a question, Jill?
Mm-hmm.
No, she's doing fabulous right now. I want her to get all the information out, and then if we have time to ask questions.
Okay, go ahead. Chief.
Well, I think I'll just say like a few more thoughts, and then maybe I'll pause so that we can open it up for questions. But Jill and I were talking before the show started, and she was asking me to hit on some points that I feel very strongly about, which is that, you know, in Florida, what it's like to be a Democrat, what it's like to be a Floridian just generally. And yes, I'm an elected official, but I'm also a human being and a person. And I believe in compassion. I believe in being realistic so that we can understand the situation that we're in, and then being very thoughtful and intentional about how we get out of it. I think we have to have an honest conversation that people are in pain in Florida. And under Republicans, that pain continues to get worse. And we are continually bombarded by all these divisive policies and these political initiatives that are meant to set people against each other. And you feel like sometimes you don't even know who you can trust with an honest conversation because you don't know what their political affiliation is or how they're going to feel about a thing. And I know I don't need to tell you what this looks like and how destructive this is, because you see it in your own communities or on your jobs, in your neighborhoods. You feel this, you're living with it. You know what it's like to be under a government who attacks infrastructure and affordable housing and public education and our ability to even just have autonomy over our own bodies or our families and decide what's best for us. And I want to acknowledge that I know that that can make people feel helpless. That can make you feel like politics is very heavy. It can make you feel like, how do we even work our way out of this? Heck, we've got districts that are so gerrymandered. It makes you think that, you know, yes, the Republicans continue to win, but they're not fighting fair. Let's have an honest conversation about that. If you're drawing a district like the governor did, drawing congressional districts that take away 2 of Florida's protected Black congressional seats, and mind you, we only had 4 to begin with. Right. So we cut it in half, right? Like where do we even start? And they give this air that they're untouchable. But let me tell you why they are not. They are not untouchable because we know that we have the power, or maybe you don't know that, but let me tell you that you do. because there is nothing that a politician is more afraid of than an informed and educated voter who is not afraid to use their vote. And I believe it's important for us to start being in community with one another across this state and sharing our stories about how these bad policies are impacting our lives so that we can build that connective tissue, we can build that community, we can be supportive of one another, and we can have the courage to do the things that we need to do to motivate our communities to vote. So I've tried to do this as leader of the House Democratic Caucus to try to create a space for where we can be together and work together. And despite even how strong our differences can be in that caucus sometimes, we always do our best to put aside our ego, and we're in a better place now than we were years ago. And in the same way, I believe we can actually do this for our entire state. We can do it through online spaces like these. And by the way, every Tuesday night, I have a live stream on my social media. I invite you to tune in on Tuesday nights at 8 p.m. I give legislative updates and I hold space for people to share their stories, folks from all across the state, what's happening with you. And you can email it in at yourvoice@fintressforflorida.com. That's yourvoice@fintressforflorida.com. Or you can even share it on my website or type it in the comments on the live stream, because I think that if we want to see a Florida that is a thriving, inclusive state where we all have freedom and where we can all thrive, we're going to have to build it ourselves. And I believe that network teams of diverse people can change the world. And I know that together we can come up with some innovative plans that can get us out of this mess. And so I know too, it can seem unconventional for a politician to ask you for something other than a donation. I'm not here asking you for money tonight. I'm not here asking you even for your vote tonight. Probably most of you who are tuning in don't even live in my district. But what I am asking for you is for your earnestness, for your honesty, for your compassion, and for your belief that together we can build a better Florida, because I know this is possible. When I talk to my mom sometimes and I feel down and I'm like, Mama, I don't know how I'm going to go on, or Mama, this just seems so hard. What she tells me is that she's like, we will not give up. You cannot give up. Our ancestors' blood is in this land, she says to me. And when she put it like that, I'm like, well, Mom, I guess you're right. And I guess I got to stand up a little taller and try a little harder. And so I'm asking you to open your heart to how you were truly feeling about what it's like to live in this state. And I'm asking you to have a little faith in each other. And I know that's not easy, but everybody, even who's watching tonight, has a why for why you tuned in. And I believe it's because you want to be informed. I believe it's because you want to see Florida do better. And I believe it's because you want to be a part of that change. So with that, maybe I will pause. I'll thank you for listening. I'm so glad to be here tonight and just to share a little bit of this information with you about how we fight both on the policy side and the political side, but also just leave open that space to know that you are also a part of the solution. So with that, maybe we can take some questions.
Well, I want to first of all, thank you for your selflessness. I mean, I heard you and Jill speak before the show, and she was speaking of your bio and all of the things that you've accomplished, and you were quick to tell her to shorten it. I mean, I love my bio being read because I'm a big old ego fella, but it speaks to who you are, and that is it's awesome. And all of the work that you do, please, we need that. We need you and more like you. So I want to lead that with a question from our Facebook viewer weighing in from Jacksonville, Florida, as a matter of fact. He says, good evening, everyone. I have a question. Sometimes it feels like the Democratic Party, both at the local, state, and national levels, don't seem to have candidates being prepared to run for office. At least that's how it feels to me. So my question is there anyone promising in the Democratic Party that is out there?
Oh, yeah. Well, thank you for the question. Duval. I hope I did it right. Right. I'm just a humble Polk County girl and whatnot. But yeah, does the Democratic Party have anybody who's out there? Actually, I think we are doing really great at having a bench. And I don't know that we always have been the best at having a bench. But if you look at nationally, I mean, just look at how many Democratic governors we have. that are phenomenal, the governors and lieutenant governors. So you've got Governor Pritzker in Illinois, then you've got a sister, Juliana Stratton, who is the lieutenant governor there. In Pennsylvania, we have our first Black woman speaker of the state assembly, Joanna McClinton. You have Gavin Newsom in California, Gretchen Whitmer, who's the governor in Michigan, and her lieutenant governor actually is a young Black man. I feel like for the first time in a long time, Democrats are actually doing really great at building a bench nationally. I think that all of those folks' time will come. I think right now it's time to everybody just go ahead and get honest and settle in with this. Pretty much the field is set for the presidential in 2024. We got Joe Biden and stability and prosperity on the one hand. We got Trump and chaos and destruction and I think the end of our democracy on the other. So that is what it is going to be nationally. And we might as well get comfortable with those choices and have honest conversations about those choices. Even if you think, the Biden administration hasn't done everything that you want, I promise you that they are better than the alternative. And we need to support our president. In terms of the state level, oh my goodness, absolutely. Yeah, you've got dynamic members in the state legislature who are prepared to run statewide. You have folks who I think up and down the ballot who are really down ballot races in the House that we are recruiting to win back these 5 seats that we need to get out of the super minority. So I'm feeling actually optimistic about candidate recruitment, but if you are seeing particular concerns in your area, please feel free to use that email address, yourvoice@venturesforflorida.com, and I'd be happy to do whatever I can to help you troubleshoot it.
Eric?
Yeah, no, thank you. First, as I think I speak on behalf of everybody, is saying thank you for sharing your time, and more importantly, thank you for what you do. We all, or the few of us here who are engaged and active in the party, know who you are and know what you're doing in the fight that you're doing, that you're waging on behalf of Floridians. But we want to expose those of us who don't know, right? And so we thank you and we appreciate your time. I guess my question is going to center around right now. We see that some folks in the other chamber are waging a war against vote by mail. And we have been talking ad nauseum and espousing why it's important for us to sign up and register for vote by mail. And you touched on it briefly about the wins that you had with HD 35 with Tom Keene. Can you share with our folks, because a lot of the things that we hear are, nope, I don't need to register for vote by mail. I like going in person. And it's hard to combat that with saying, okay, we talk about it, that it should be your plan A and voting should be your plan B. But can you just share your thoughts on why, A, what they're trying to do and how it's going to be detrimental to our people and communities of color, and B, why it's important for our community to register for vote by mail, even if they choose not to vote by mail?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great question. And, I can't see what's happening in the Facebook chat, but I'm just going to throw this question out there. If you could just throw some sort of a response in the chat, like I know or I didn't know, did you all know that everybody got kicked off the vote by mail rolls because of a bad bill that the Republicans passed and that DeSantis signed into law? I'm just curious if the public knows that, because what we found in House District 35 is that most people didn't realize that they've been kicked off the rolls. And so, you typically just wait for your supervisor of elections to send you your vote by mail ballot if you're already signed up to receive one. And the Republicans kept, making that time period shorter and shorter for when you had to request a new ballot. And then finally, they just kicked everybody off the rolls. And let me tell you why. You have to go back a little bit, a few years, to try to understand how this happened. Typically, Democrats would dominate in early voting and Republicans would dominate in vote by mail and day of voting. Well, during the pandemic, Democrats did such a good job getting people to sign up for vote by mail. The Republicans panicked. They panicked because they felt like they were going to lose the election for Trump. They were concerned about this. This is not conspiracy theory stuff. There were texts that were brought forward by Republicans who had sponsored these bills to impact vote by mail that really revealed what their game plan was. Their game plan was to silence your voice and mine, was to suppress your story and mine, and to make sure that we were not able to vote by mail and have our votes count like how they should. So now there's there's a bill that would actually eliminate vote by mail altogether. And I'm not sure whether or not it will pass this session, but we should all be alarmed, because if it doesn't pass this session, you better believe they're going to keep trying to bring it back until it does pass. And this is important for how our seniors vote, how our students vote, and frankly, for how I think everybody should vote. As I was knocking on doors for that special election, talking to people, just let's be honest, life in modern times is complicated. Even on a good day, your best plans could go awry. So I always encourage people, don't wait until election day, because you never know what could happen. That could be the day you get that flat tire. That could be the day you have to work late at work or get called in to work on your day off. You never know what could happen. So it's important for people to vote during early voting, vote by mail. Those are both safe ways to vote, and it's very helpful. It ensures that we have the turnout that we need. So I would just say, it's another indicator of how important our votes are. The fact that they try to take it away all the time, right? Like they don't want us to vote. That should make us want to vote even more. And vote by mail, last thing I'll say about it, being so great, is that we can actually track the ballot, so we can see whether or not you've turned your ballot in. That's why you get all those phone calls and those texts when people are like, hey, have you voted yet? If you turn in your ballot, all those things will stop. So try to vote early so that you can not have to have people call and harass you to vote.
We get a resounding yes as far as the question you asked, but that's because of our viewers. We've been on that and letting them know. So thank you, viewers. Thank you. You're the best viewers in the world.
Nice.
Christina?
So I had a couple of things. First, thank you so much for being here. You just don't know what an inspiration you are, and I'm just so grateful that you're here, and also that you're there. I know it's got to be hard, but just know that when you walk into that room, you take all of our voices, all of our hopes, all of our needs in with you. So thank you for doing that. It's important, and I'm really, really grateful. I had a couple of things. One is when you were talking about when we flip these next 5 seats, we're going to be out of, the Republicans will be out of the supermajority. However, when that happens, the Republicans will still be in the majority. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. So, but it means we'll have a better chance, a better fight to really make some changes.
It will. And let me maybe shed a little more color on why it's so important. So, right, if you're in the minority, you don't have the 50% plus one that you need to stop bad bills on the floor, but it gives us more of an angle in committees where we can have more influence to stop bad bills from ever getting to the floor. It means that on procedural votes where the Republicans need 2/3 to make something happen, they have to come to us to ask whether or not that thing can happen. If they want to pass a tax, if they want to waive the rules, there are different things that they have to do procedurally and come to the minority party to get the minority party's assent. So that actually is a significant tool that we have to stop some bad things from happening. But at the top of the program, I was sharing about how I'm very honored that I get to serve as leader for 4 years. So that gives us the ability to have some long-term plans and put infrastructure in place that will allow us to make gains, but then consolidate them and then continue to build on top of it. I think what has happened in prior cycles is that maybe we make a gain or maybe we have loss, but whatever happens is the whole infrastructure gets washed away. And so now that I've had this longer runway and more time to build out some of the infrastructure that we need, it's infrastructure that I believe will last and that will help set us up so that, yeah, we'll get out of the super minority as a start, but we'll continue to build power as we go so that we continue to take up more vote share in the legislature.
So the other thing was when you were talking, so I'm big on voting rights, maps, all of it, because we can't build a foundation without a stable voting foundation. Otherwise, it's like building a mansion in quicksand. All those things we care about can be so easily taken away. When I look across the state and I look at places that are truly blue, have been blue, or are truly purple, one thing I notice that's different is, I'm in a really rural county. I'm in Santa Rosa County, and we have almost at-large voting for almost everything. So we're 70% Republican and 30% not Republican. That 70% is going to blow out every time, because we don't vote for our own single districts. We don't, the entire county votes for every commissioner. So for example, I live in Navarre. I still vote for the commissioner that comes out of Jay, Florida. Same with our school board reps. I live in Navarre and I vote for the school board rep that comes out of Pace. We all vote for all of them. That was actually designed to help silence historically Black communities so that they would never hold power. Is there ever a chance, and those who hold power are never going to concede it. So how can we work to truly get true maps, and so that those who are elected truly represent where they're from?
Yeah, what a great question, Christina. And as I was listening to your question, it's this situation where the fox is always guarding the hen house, isn't it? Right? It's like you gonna trust the fox with the hen house? You know what fox, right? So this is what we're dealing with in this legislature, where we've got folks who are in power who want to keep that power. And so there's, all this temptation and power hungriness that causes them to draw maps that are not fair. And before anybody says, okay, probably nobody on this live stream is going to say it, but I'm just going to put it out there, because my Republican counterparts really bragged about how there were no challenges in court to the state legislative maps that they drew in redistricting. Well, it's probably because they were constitutional enough, but it was the difference between, how I put it, like drawing a D+ map versus drawing an A+ map. Like if I got a D+ in algebra, I still passed, but like, was I top of the class? No, like probably it's not. And that's the same thing with these maps. It's like, if you look at where Democrats were before redistricting versus after, you can kind of see where the Republicans were able to draw some of these maps to favor them just enough so that they picked up enough seats to push us down into the super minority. So I guess what I would say is the solution is winning more seats. The thing that we have to do is the thing that we have to do for everything. And that is to win more seats so that there's more balance, more friction, more checks and balances, so that there's actually more accountability and transparency in all of these processes. But I do want to point out that I think it's going to be the Panhandle and our more rural areas that are going to make the difference in statewide elections going forward. Because let me tell you, when I have visited the counties in the Panhandle, there is just, you guys are on fire. The energy there is so good. You seem so determined. And think about it, in statewide races for U.S. Senate, for governor, for CFO, attorney general, all those cabinet positions, all that matters is the majority vote. And so if we can get our red areas to turn out a little bit better, if we can get Democrats to really turn out in some of those more rural areas, I think next thing you know it, who knows, maybe we have some Democratic cabinet members who can really start making some change.
100% agree with you. And thank you so much for saying that. We don't get to hear that very often. So it's awesome to actually hear somebody say that. We've been saying that. We are, our big bragging right is even within the Democratic Party, when it came down to it, it was the Panhandle that really pushed Andrew Gillum over the edge to have him be our nominee. And we worked so hard and we were so proud of that. And so to hear you say that, I just want to say thank you. One of my other questions, and also thank you, was pointing out to Ron DeSantis about needing more money for the emergency fund. Could you talk a little bit about that and how he kind of stripped that and where that money went to?
So which emergency fund are you talking about? Are you talking about the real one, or are you talking about his slush fund?
The emergency fund, where that's where he was using to actually transport migrants from. It was supposed to be used to help in case of an emergency. And then he asked for additional money because it was zero, and it was like, why? And then all this stuff kind of came out about where he was spending it.
Yeah, you're talking about his fake fund. So this governor, your governor, I'm not going to claim him right now. So if anybody out there wants to have him, fought to have these emergency funds with there's no accountability. Like, he can say anything is an emergency, right? And these are things we tried to point out. Like, what if he just says there's an emergency at the border, then all of a sudden you're sending the Florida State Guard to the border in Texas, right? Like, to deal with immigration. What is this? And meanwhile, I know of folks in the Panhandle who are still dealing with claims from Hurricane Michael, right? It's very difficult to wrap my head around this and to make it make sense. And so, no, he doesn't need those funds for his fake publicity stunts. Every culture war and stunt that he pulls has a built-in economic cost to it, because it didn't help property insurance rates get lower. It didn't help the folks who still have outstanding hurricane damage claims, right? So I'm very concerned about that. We've also been getting some data that we have to crunch about the cost of lawsuits that the DeSantis administration has had to defend, because he gets sued all the time for these culture wars, or he inserts himself in really, just nonsensical issues where he shouldn't be sticking his nose. So yeah, it's a lot of waste of hard-earned taxpayer dollars just to try to score political points, but doesn't do anything to help make our lives better, actually. And it's very concerning to me. To get very serious about it, it is very concerning to me that there's a governor as divisive as DeSantis, who could have millions and millions of dollars at his disposal just to wage political warfare. And it's bad, it's unhealthy for all of us. And yeah, it concerns me what he might do with those dollars. Meanwhile, he brags about how Florida continues to build billions into his reserves, but the reality is he should be making sure that money gets to the people who need it most. How can you brag about having reserves and you're out there wasting money sending migrants from not Florida to not Florida?
You talked about the HBCUs. Also, he's attacking DEI, and he's talking about not finance. Can you speak on that a little bit?
Yeah, and I'll tell you, the impact of his policies continues to creep in other areas of our lives. So it all started with the quote unquote Stop Woke Act. This was House Bill 7 from either 2022 or 2021. I forget exactly which year that passed, but it basically blocked diversity, equity, and inclusion in higher education. It also, in some ways, blocked it in the workplace. And then I learned last week that the Supreme Court, without anybody asking it to do this, without anyone saying, hey, it'd be great is if you ended DE&I in the Florida bar. That's what they basically did. And you heard from my bio that I'm a lawyer. I came up volunteering in the bar on the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee and doing gender bias elimination work. And now the Supreme Court has basically said we can't have DE&I programs or fund any of them in the Florida bar. The Florida bar is 100,000 members strong in Florida. So this impacts quite a few people in quite a number of communities. And so it's just this culture war that continues to grow. It's not unique to Florida, although it seems like a lot of the bad policies that start here don't end here. They get exported out to other states as well. And this is just another case of why it's important to elect Democrats. It is so important to have checks and balance in the government. This is just how our government is set up to work. And right now it's broken because there's one party that just continues to roll through its extremist policies that, once again, don't do anything to help make anybody's life better.
Why the culture wars, ma'am, and why in most recent years?
Yeah, so I think the timing of that certainly has to do with the governor's quest to seek the Republican nomination for president, right? Like he's very ambitious. He set himself up on this path. I think it really started during COVID. That's when it really started to kind of catch heat. And he tried to set himself up as a foil to President Biden and to science and to Anthony Fauci, right? Just trying to really, even though he was like a state level player, trying to be a national level player, gained a lot of attention from that. And then just continued culture war after culture war. The first really big culture war bill that we saw was in 2021. It was House Bill 1, the anti-protester bill. Do you guys remember that?
Oh God, yes.
Yeah. So, for the viewers out there, in the wake of the murder of George Floyd and Breonna Taylor and like too many unarmed people to name, in a time where people were protesting and feeling so hurt and scared, and there were lockdowns and all these things, rather than be a leader who would bring us together, this governor, your governor, because I told you I don't claim him, this governor passed House Bill 1 or signed it into law after it passed, but he pushed it, which basically was cracking down on protesters to the point where it said that if you are a driver and there are protesters blocking your way and you hit them, there's a presumption that you were in the right to do it.
Yeah, yeah.
Blocking traffic. And if we're living in a society where, a traffic delay matters more than a human life, we've completely lost our way and our North Star. So this is a governor who set himself on a path with these culture wars because he saw that it was exciting to his base. But I think what the lesson of his failed presidential endeavor has taught us is that America didn't want this.
Yes.
America didn't want that. They didn't. It's too much. Doing too much.
I said that last week. While we're right there, I got another question from a Facebook streamer. It says, I recently heard that a representative from the Tampa area, I think who is a Republican, wants to introduce a bill which was called the Kamala Harris bill, in which it would require educators who talk about slavery that they say and teach that the Democratic Party is a party of slavery. Can you speak on that or anything regarding that?
Yeah, such nonsense, right? Because we know that that is just designed to inflame. Okay, we know anybody who has studied history knows that Abraham Lincoln was a Republican. We know that there was a Republican president at the time presiding over the Civil War. Like, we know these things, right? But we also know about things including the Southern strategy. And we know how Republicans decided to use race to divide the parties and to lure Southern Democrats into their party. Like, we can research history. It's like when I see bills like that, I'm like, welcome to the party, guys. Not party in terms of Democrat, but party as in, oh, you can read a book and understand history. But what they're trying to do is twist it, right? They're trying to twist it. They're trying to trip people up who may not know the history and think that, that modern Democrats are supportive of slavery. Of course we are not. So things have changed. The parties have had different identities throughout the course of history in this country. But let me be unequivocally clear. There is one party that stands for freedom. There's one party that stands for freedom right now, true, actual freedom, not fake freedom, not the type of freedom that causes you to have to push down and punch down on other people, but the freedom to be healthy, prosperous, and safe. And that's the Democratic Party.
I've noticed that they haven't said one word about their dear leader who is saying he was going to be a dictator on day one when he got there. So, I mean, the kind of people, I mean, I think about the people that's voting for him, that's upholding him, that they don't care or don't understand that what that means that would be the end of democracy as we know it. I mean,
yeah, I try to be as hopeful as I can and hold a compassionate place in my heart that hopefully it's the latter, is that they don't understand. I was talking to a friend a week or so ago, and she was telling me about this gentleman that she met who's basically started an organization to try to help people when they leave MAGA and when they kind of wake up and realize that, Trump asked them to go too far, like the loyalty that he asks for. I mean, just think about it. Any friend that you would have in your life, if a friend asks you to have loyalty to them without you ever even being able to think differently than they do, you would not want to have that friend in your life. It's like, why would you want those qualities in a president? But what that person shared with her, because apparently he was deep into MAGA, he would go to bed thinking about how does he help Donald Trump. He would wake up thinking the same thing. And then as he backed away from it because he felt like he was being asked things that were unpatriotic, as he backed out of it, what he realized is that what was most helpful were the people in his life that held a place of compassion for him, that basically kept the light on, is how she described it. Just like you would keep a light on for a kid who's coming home late at night, like you give them a pathway back, you offer up reasonable fact-based conversation. Because I think that's the kind of healing that we're going to need in this country to get past this. Yeah, so it's really challenging times though, that half of the country roughly seems to think that Trump would make a good president. And I don't know how we find a way back unless we also try to have those conversations about, like, actually, we got to get a little vulnerable. Actually, that bad policy, this is how it has impacted my life. This is how it is impacting your neighbors. We have to be willing to continue to have those conversations, even once the dust settles.
Jill, yeah.
To be clear, in the meantime, we have to fight. Let me just back up. In the meantime, we have to fight. Like, I want to be very clear. In the meantime, we got to do all we can, register every voter, make sure that the people that we know are registered to vote, and don't take it for granted. Don't take it for granted. And I've probably said this in a million speeches and on 1,000 different programs. Okay, that's hyperbole. I'm not giving a million speeches, but the point is, like, I say this a lot, and I think we hear it a lot, but we don't actually process what that means. That means that when it comes close to election time, you got to pull out your phone, you got to go through your contacts, and you got to reach out to the people who you believe, reach out to everybody if you can, but especially the people who you think would be at risk of not voting. And do not take it for granted. Help them find their polling place. Like, it's not just a nice thing to say or a nice thing to think about. It's actually an impactful thing to do.
So let me ask you this: how impactful is it that people show up in Tallahassee when you all are in session?
So it can make a difference. It can. I've seen it make a difference. There was once this bill. What was that bill? It was on firefighter cancer benefits. And ultimately, it was in danger of not passing. And it basically would have created a presumption that if a firefighter dies from cancer, that cancer was caused by chemicals and just the smoke that they were exposed to in the line of duty. And it would allow their families to have certain benefits. And that bill was in danger of not passing. And people got on the phones, people came to Tallahassee. And the next thing you knew, there was a Democrat actually who'd been carrying the bill. The Republicans stole it, made it seem like their bill, and then they passed it. I've also seen it happen when Bright Futures was in danger and young people organized and they made their voices heard, and then the Republicans took that off the table. So I'm not here to tell you that it's going to make a difference in every situation and that it can change how a vote is going to go. But I've seen it happen in some critical instances that I know that it matters. I know that that advocacy matters. And it's important also to lay the record for future legal challenges. So having that public testimony can really help.
It's really, again, it's really a pleasure having you here. Anybody got any questions? Any more?
I don't have a question. I'm going to share something that I think you need to know, because I hear you all the time and you talk, and you absolutely are light in the darkness. There are many of us here right now and that are listening that are young tired. So I'm not talking about 60, 70, 80-year-olds that are tired, but those of us that are 40 to 60 that are young tired. And it's hard to stay in the fight. It's hard to look at, especially in our counties where, like Christina said, for Okaloosa and Santa Rosa, we're outnumbered 3 times by just Republicans. If we add the MPAs in, we're still outnumbered by 2 times. It's the reason you see the Panhandle fight so much, because we have no other choice. It's fight or die for us every day of our life. It's fight or die. We just have to fight to just be ourselves. But when you were talking, and the reason I asked you to do that unity piece is because every time you do it, it brings me to tears. Like, literally, because it gives, I think you have the ability to give people hope, not false hope. So you're not saying, hey, it's going to be beautiful, it's going to be wonderful, but at least we know we have a leader that's there, that's fighting for us, that's bringing everybody together, that wants to hear what's going on in our lives. How is this impacting you? Because if I can use it on the floor, if I can use it in the legislature, however I can do it, I'm going to use what I hear. And so for that, I just want to say thank you, because just personally, with all the things that I'm just myself, because I'm not gonna talk for anybody else, that I feel like I got darts going in every direction, from medical to insurance to just people to DNI to people just not accepting you for who you are, not letting you fight when you're fighting for them because they can only see the color of your skin or your disability or whatever it is. It's hard. And sometimes you just absolutely feel like you're by yourself, even with friends surrounding you. You feel lost and alone. And what you do is you give hope and light and power. So for that, I just personally want to say thank you. Please don't give up. And if you ever need us, I would say send us a text and say, hey, we're having a rough time here. Give me some letters, give me some flowers, give me people in Tallahassee, give me something so that we can give back to you what you give and fight for us every day.
Well, let me just say that you honor me. I appreciate that. Those very kind words. And to me, it's just I think I talked about it earlier, right? Like my mom said, our ancestors' blood is in this land. And I think about what my grandmother would say if she were still with us. She would have said, you have to run on to see what the end's going to be, right? Like we know we cannot let them have this. We know we cannot grow weary in well-doing. By all means, we have to take care of ourselves and have rest and have self-care and all of the things that it takes to allow us to restore ourselves as warriors. But once we have those things, we have to keep fighting because there is so much at stake. And I love and appreciate your vulnerability, because I think there are a lot of folks out there who do feel like they're in it alone. And they feel like this what is happening is so overwhelming. Like, how is anything going to change? And the reality is, no individual one of us can make the big change that needs to happen. It is going to take all of us. And we have to get into that place where we understand that our reasonable, modest effort alone may not be enough. But when you start to aggregate that, then look at what we can do. Look at how we can grow. Look at how we can grow. The Democratic Party, I believe, is more of a coalition than a party. Guess what? That means we have to make room for each other. We have to make space. We don't even have to all agree on the same minute issues. But if we can agree about those fundamental values like freedom, my goodness, think about the change we can make. And so I appreciate you. I feel like I'm going into this week of session with my tank a little more full because of the space that I have spent with you all tonight and this time. I appreciate it. You guys have asked me a couple times now, how can you be helpful to me? This is my ask. Please follow me on social media. And I know a lot of politicians or whoever ask for that all the time, but if you like anything of what I had to say, if you want to get the updates that I'm pushing out on Tuesday nights about what's happening in Tallahassee, if you want to be part of the community that we're trying to build all across the state, if you want to share your story and let me know how these policies have been impacting you, good or bad, then please do that. I'm at Fentress4FL across all social media platforms. Fentress FORFL across all social media platforms. And I would love to hear from you and stay connected.
Can you talk a little bit about your Tuesday night, what you're doing on Tuesdays?
Yeah, absolutely. So we started the first one a few weeks ago in response to the governor's State of the State address. As leader, I'm charged with giving a response to that. And I thought it'd be kind of cool, not just to focus on the one that we do for the audience in Tallahassee, like the Capitol Press Corps, but to really take it to the people so that the people could know some of the things that the governor said. Because, all of what happens in state government, it's broadcast on the Florida channel, but like hardly anybody watches it. Like my mom watches it. Shout out, mama. But, most Floridians are at at their jobs or work or whatever, and they're not watching. And I thought maybe it'd be good for the people to know about what he said, and maybe they need to know like the truth and some fact checking in what he said and what the alternatives are. And so we did a live stream that Tuesday night at 8 p.m. and it went so well, we've committed to doing it every week. so that people can hear these updates. So every Tuesday night at 8 p.m., typically no matter where I'm at, I try to bring these live streams and try to bring that information so people can get updates, but they can also share their stories and hear the stories of other folks as well. And we also share information about how people can get plugged in and stay involved in the work to build the movement that we need to change some things in Florida, to change everything in Florida.
Is that Fentress 4 or Fentress 4? F-O-R.
F-O-R. So it's Fentrice, Fentrice, F-O-R, F-L. On Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, X, which I guess the artist formerly known as Twitter, across all platforms.
Fentress 4 FL. I see you. Okay.
I'm going to ask, if for nobody else, I know you didn't want to, but I'm going to ask for those who are in our viewing audience who want to support you financially in your campaigns or whatnot, how can we do so?
I sincerely appreciate that ask. So during legislative session, we have a fundraising embargo where we cannot raise any resources. So I'm not able to get contributions at this time.
Okay.
But I appreciate the question. And as a reminder, session ends. So come see me March 9th.
Okay.
So viewers out there, please go ahead now and start following Fentress 4, F-O-R-F-L, please.
Yeah,
So-
it's
so
really
you-
helpful to follow, and then to also, like, if there's something that you hear that you like, to share the content, because we leave the content of the live streams up because we also know people are busy. They can't just tune in just because I'm going live. But this is really a big part of what we need to do. So share it with your classmates, your churches, you know, your coworkers, that one angry uncle who's always shouting at MSNBC. You know, he needs this information. Please share it. It's helpful. And again, we're going to build the army that we need to try to change some things for the better in the state.
So now, when can people start donating?
Let's say March 7th.
Can't do it right now, but when can they?
March 9th, if
March
there's
9th.
a session.
March 9th. Okay.
For lawmakers, we can't raise money during legislative session, so we have to wait until it ends.
Okay.
There's stuff people can do right now. I just want to keep emphasizing that. Like, it sounds like a small thing, but following on social media helps. Sharing your story helps. All of these things help.
I also want to thank you and the Democrats who have raised the issue about the Florida and Florida prisons, and there not being any air conditioning in the majority of Florida prisons, with the extreme heat that has been going on. Nobody's been accountable for that. Nobody has talked about that. And prison should not be a life or death sentence. And we should have humanity for all people. And that is something I am grateful to all the Democrats who are standing up and raising attention to that.
Thank you for that. And that leads me to give a shout out to Representative Diane Hart, who also represents a district in the Tampa Bay area like I do. Rep. Hart has been an outstanding voice for prison reform. And many of us, including myself, have been honored to stand beside her as an ally in that work. And you're absolutely right. I mean, the conditions of our prisons are just unacceptable and frankly inhumane. And we see how hot it is in Florida. We see it. We're ground zero for climate change and what's happening with these extreme temperatures, and storms are getting worse. And meanwhile, we're treating people as subhuman. And yeah, that's not okay. So thank you for flagging that very important issue.
T. Taylor on our Facebook stream comes back with 58% of African Americans live in southern states, which are majority red states. This is why we feel the Democrats aren't helping us. The point should be used to make disgruntled Democrats understand why it seems that Democrats aren't working for them.
Yeah, I'm not sure I understood the question in there, but I think the general point is that a lot of Black folks feel that Democrats are not being as helpful as possible, or is not helping the Black community. And I just really want to push back on that. I was having a conversation with someone earlier who was saying the same thing to me, and what she said is that, the Biden administration says that things are getting better, but my property insurance rates are so high. And I said, that's not the Biden administration. That's the Republicans who've been in control of the Florida legislature and continue to give billions and billions of dollars of bailouts to the property insurance industry. And then she mentioned another issue, which I'm trying to remember what it was. And I was also like, well, we'll keep in mind that that's also state government, right? And so I think there's a lot that gets conflated about what the federal government can do versus what the state government can do and who is in charge of those governments. And in Florida, for example, healthcare premiums, I think I heard an estimate that they're set to rise by as much as 7% this year or more. Well, that goes back to the Medicaid expansion issue that I talked about, where we have hundreds of thousands of people in Florida who are uninsured. And let me dispel this myth. These are people who work. They work, but they make too much to qualify for Medicaid, but they don't make enough to qualify for Obamacare or to be able to afford it. Right. And so they exist in this gap. We could expand Medicaid, cover these folks, and add an additional $200 million per year into our state government. Right. So these are practical things that Republicans in Florida could do to help Floridians with these kitchen table issues, because Florida is becoming too expensive for Floridians to afford. But that has nothing to do with the Biden administration. I was reading an article today that was talking about how Biden has led one of the strongest economic recoveries, and not one of the strongest economic recovery in the world post-pandemic. And inflation has come down pretty much everywhere in the country except Florida. And what makes us different? It's this particular brand of Republican politics that we have here that continues to put the powerful ahead of the people and won't allow us to feel the economic benefits that we need. So I just feel like it's very important to say that. And then I look at the Biden administration. I mean, they gave us our first Black woman vice president, our first Black woman Supreme Court justice. I look at just they're doing so much, the infrastructure work, the way they are creating jobs, the way they take climate change seriously, the economic recovery. People talked about the checks that Donald Trump gave during the pandemic, because Donald Trump took the extraordinary step of having his name on those checks. But President Biden also gave direct relief like 2 or 3 times. So we really need to dispel some of these myths. We need to get clear on who's responsible for what policies and how those policies are impacting our lives.
Myself, I think that civics need to be 101 again on live television, so people can understand how legislators work and how legislation work in the country, from the Congress to the judicial to the president.
I agree. And I also want to say, though, like, I don't want to ignore that felt sense that a lot of Black Americans are feeling, where they don't feel like there's been enough progress. I don't want to ignore that. And I am hopeful and optimistic that the Biden administration and the campaign indeed will find more ways to address that as the campaign rolls forward. Because we don't want to have to pull people along kicking and screaming just with facts. People need to, what's that Maya Angelou quote? People will never, they'll forget what you said, they'll forget whatever, but they'll never forget how you made them feel. Like we want Black America to feel confident in this vote, but I do feel like there are a number of reasons why Black Americans should be supportive of the Biden-Harris ticket.
I agree. What I'm saying is, I don't think enough people know how legislation work in the country. And I'm not talking about Black people, I'm talking about people in general. Don't understand how the House and Senate is the one that write the legislation, the president signs it into law. A lot of people don't really understand it, but a lot of things that has been signed into law is because they was pushing hard to get it passed. And so some people feel that laws that didn't get passed, that the Biden administration didn't push hard enough. And, we saw what happened when you have 2 senators that can stop bills that has caused people to think it was Biden who did not push hard enough, even though they was pushing, trying to get those bills through. The senators, 2 Democrat senators, stopped those bills in their track, especially the George Floyd and Policing Act, voting rights, the John Lewis, all of those bills were stopped by two senators in the Senate. And if they don't pass those bills, they don't get to the president's desk to be signed. The law, and a lot of people are angry about that, but they have to understand how the legislators work in Washington.
That's an excellent point. That's an excellent point. And I've watched President Biden move through executive orders and his executive power as much as he can. But there's certain things that he just can't do because that's the way our Constitution is set up. And so I think you're hitting the nail on the head. And then you look too, we have a Congress, a House of Representatives federally that couldn't even select a speaker for like 3 or 4 weeks. And we expect these people to be passing the bills that the president wants. Like they couldn't even do what they wanted internally. So you're absolutely right in this point of civic education. People need to know what's happening, which is why I'm so glad that you invited me here tonight and that you are also holding spaces like these because, we can't always expect the people to come to us. We got to take this to the people. And so thank you for doing that and making it so accessible. I am probably gonna bounce now because
I was gonna say we were just texting and saying we need to let her go. Oh my gosh, look how much time we've taken and we want to rested for tomorrow and the rest of this week. So on behalf of all of us, we truly, truly appreciate you. I think this is one of our I'm gonna say this to me, one of our best shows because it was so just honest, open. It's hope, it's light, it's everything that's needed. It reinforces what we've been saying, but it means so much more coming from you as leader of the House. And so continue the fight, know that we're here for you. And we truly, truly say thank you. We love you and don't give up because we're not going to give up on you.
And come back real soon.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
I'll be back.
Thank you. Have a great night.
You too.
That was pretty good, Jill. That was awesome. That really was. I mean, my ears were, that was awesome. Now, when I think back to how you guys said she spoke, last week or 2 weeks ago, I can see how powerful she was. And that was enlightening, really was.
We was talking a little bit about Joe Biden administration, but I have a list of things that we'll talk about before we leave, things that has been accomplished. And we need to address those things as much as possible. We will be doing them every week. So we want to reinforce those things that he has done, such as, the executive order on debt forgiveness. A lot of people I know they took advantage of it, and they have cleared their debt ratio, and as far as from college and all of that. So they have done wonders with that, and it's setting them free from a lot of debt that they would have had to pay, but they don't have to pay now. So it's great to have it, and Fresh Start program and all of that has been good for them, for those individuals. Also, Derek, did you have something else lined up?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. As we were talking about, it's a great segue. I was like, wait, what were we talking about? We didn't get into, we went straight in, and we appreciate for those who tuned in, and we again thank Representative Ventress Driscoll, House Minority Leader for the Florida House, for coming on tonight. I've been looking at the chat, and everybody's like, this was great. This was a lot of information. Our views are up through the roof on the Facebook side of things. So I'm glad that we're getting the information out, and we hope that she comes back very, very soon. And for those of you all who are tuning in for the first time or just starting to tune in, I guess what I will say is that this is what you should expect when you tune into our voices, certain information, and we're going to work to get you those folks who are fighting on your behalf and get you the information. I know one of the things that I appreciated her coming to hear is that you hear the six of us all the time tell you stuff. And sometimes maybe people are like, okay, I don't know if they know what they're talking about. You know, maybe they know what they're talking about, but maybe they don't. But the fact that someone from the Florida House who leads the Democratic constituency in the Florida House came and shared with you her thoughts. And if you were paying attention, they kind of mirror what we've been talking about. So, you know, that's the thing. So it gives credibility to what we're saying. I appreciate her for saying that. Please make sure you go out and follow Representative Driscoll on all social media platforms. And come, what is that, March 9th? We will give you the information on how you can donate to her campaign, because without her, you know, we're going to be struggling, you know. And then my own personal, you know, I know I'm going to say, Jill, manage your eyes. I know you're going to look at me when I say this crazy, but, you know, I hear a lot of times folks in certain circles talk about the leadership in the Democratic Party, or the focus being on Black people, or there are too many Black people in this, or too many Black people, or where their qualifications come from. Bet you won't ask that about Representative Driscoll, because she told you she went to Harvard and Georgetown. So if you have questions about who's leading you and whether they're qualified, I'm just going to tell you Representative Driscoll is that, and you don't need to ask any more questions. So thank you. I appreciate that. But yeah, Bill, you're about to say something.
Well, no, man, to your point, she made me feel real good, because she hit on all of the things that we constantly talk about. And to my credit, she was speaking of that hope that I try to give this panel, that in November, it's going to be better than what you guys are thinking. You guys think that guy has all of this, and I keep saying that subliminally, the right-wing media makes it seem like, just stay home, everybody. This guy's leading by 30, 40, 50 points an hour, and he's going to go take New Hampshire, and then on and on. But I keep giving our viewers that hope.
Yeah.
That it's not as bad as that right-wing media seems. We've got hope. She has the hope. And I know that we got to keep the good fight now. Don't get me wrong. We can't fall asleep at the wheel. But I'm telling you, man, don't believe those polls, because they're polling right-wing Republicans. That's what those, and they're taking them polls and run with it to subliminally distract you and I.
Well, what I did not hear her say, Mr. Bill, was that Trump was not going to be on the ticket. I didn't hear her say anything about that.
As a matter of fact, Derek, what he absolutely said was the ticket was going to be Biden Trump.
Yeah.
That's what she said.
I didn't hear her say that, right.
But she didn't say that he was. She didn't say that he wasn't.
But listen, so here's where I am with that. I think I love your hope. But I want to separate. The hope that we just got from Fentress is absolute truth, reality, hope. That means everybody needs to go to all the social medias. They need to go write letters. They need to register to vote. They need to vote by mail. They need to do all of that. Because if you don't do the reality hope, you'll never get to the wonderful hope that Bill has. We're just going to call it Bill Wonderful Hope. Because
I'm agreeing with you.
I don't care what they're polling. If we don't get out and vote, if we don't do what we're supposed to do, they can poll all they want. It's going to be truth just because we stayed home. So I don't want to worry about the polling, but I also don't want to tell them it's not true. What I want to tell them more is, don't let it scare you. Don't let it keep you home. Don't think that your vote doesn't matter. All of that, I think, is reality hope. You know, there is a higher being than us that's in control, and I'm going to hope to goodness gracious that he is ready to make all this right, and we'll have the right person win. But without our help, you know, you don't move a parked car. You know, you have to put some energy into it, and I think that's what she said too, is that we've got to do our part, and we're going to have to do there's going to be some hard stuff that has to happen. So there's going to be relationships, working relationships that we have to put together so that we can move forward. That means we're going to have to reach out to MPAs, and MPAs, you're going to have to talk to us. You're going to have a conversation, and we're going to have to look at the issue and say, how can we come together on the issue? And even Republicans, Democrats, you're going to have to, those of you that are not all the way on the other side that really want to understand, how can you make your community better? How can we make it a better Florida for everyone? They're going to have to come to the table willing to talk about the issues and come up with strategic plans and ways to work together to make sure that we can have the dream reality that Bill has come true.
Hey, you're absolutely right. I agree wholeheartedly with everything you just said. Lord bless Diane up there in St. Louis, Missouri. She's with me. And T. Taylor says, who are they polling? But Lois Bless agrees with you and I. She says you're absolutely right, Jill.
There was something I just had and lost.
That text the people that may not get out and vote. I really like that part. Y'all, the panel viewers, please keep that one in mind. That was a good one. On the election day and leading up to those that may not have voted already, the ones that you think might not, or for whatever reason, text those people and make sure they are getting out and rocking the vote. That was real good.
Yeah.
I think we've been talking about voting by mail for the longest, but hearing it from the leader of the House, the minority leader in the House, it should kind of sink in a little bit, because people didn't really understand that somebody can take away your privilege to vote by mail and your rights. And if you get sick or something, if you happen to have to go in the hospital or just have to go out of town or something of that nature, you can always, that should be your contingency plan all the time. But a lot of, I like to go vote in person too. But by the same token, I got to have a contingency plan.
That's right.
Because the reason I make sure it happens now, because one time I went in the hospital and I did have the vote by mail. But if I hadn't had that vote by mail, I couldn't have voted because I was in the hospital on the day that voting came about. So I would encourage everybody, if you haven't re-registered to vote by mail, to be sure to do that. It's very important, because anything can happen at any time. And hopefully nothing will, but we always have to plan.
That's right.
Can I just reference back to what she said, since so many people were taken off of vote by mail, it's not going to hurt you to do it, even if you thought you did it. Redo it, because that then renews your signature and it gets you back on vote by mail, because you might not remember when you signed it, whenever you signed it before, how you signed your name, everything they can stop you with. It doesn't hurt you to be at some event or to listen to this show or to be, on your supervisor of elections website and see vote by mail. It's not going to hurt you to fill out another one. It's not going to hurt you to update your voter registration. It's only going to help. And if you do it, then you can make sure that you are registered to vote by mail. I just think that everything we can do, we should do. That's where we are. We are at the point that everything that every person can do to try to make, I'm going to say it again, Bill's wonderful reality a reality only happens if we do everything. You have to put everything on the table. We just can't give up. We just can't. And so that means do everything possible. Go fill out another vote by mail form. It takes a half a second. You can call the SOE office. We were at a meeting the other day, and the lady was right. You literally can call the SOE office and say, I want to go back on vote by mail. And as long as you verify the stuff they need to verify, you can sign up yourself and anybody in your household. It's simple, it's easy, or you can fill out the form. You can go online and do it. It's just better to be ready and prepared.
And Nita Welcome on our Facebook stream says that the polls are created to discourage an individual in thinking that their vote won't matter.
Yeah, and that's you know, it's something that we got to get people out of thinking that way. If it didn't matter, you know, we say it so often, people would be spending the kind of money they have spent or they are spending to make sure that you don't vote. They are spending money to go into court to keep you from voting. They are spending money to gerrymander districts so that you can't even elect the person that you want to elect into office. That's going to be beneficial to you. So I don't understand how people thinking they vote don't count, because they do. If we voted in the numbers that we ought to vote in, say, we could change the trajectory of the country. But because so many people have so much doubt, and then so many people, you know, that have come out of jails and other places cannot vote, we have to vote for them, you know, so that we can change that trajectory. I know that there are people in different cities. Their record is being cleansed so that they can participate in the process, so they can get jobs and housing and go back to school and all of that. So it's something that we have to fight for here in Florida. Prison reform and all of those things are necessary. We fought so hard to get Amendment 4 passed, only to get it shot down by saying that, excuse me, that we have to, you know, a person have to, you know, pay all their back debts and all that. I thought if you went to prison, you know, and you spent time in there and you worked in the jailhouse, you should come out and that debt should be paid to society. That's what it's
That's
supposed.
right.
And you're supposed to have went there for rehabilitation, not just punitive. But that's where we at.
Yeah, we have to vote. If not for anything else, the ancestors' blood that this soil is drenched in. If for no other reason, we've got to vote. MAGA thinks the worst thing that happened in this country was us getting the right to vote. That's why we must exercise our right. It's not optional.
And if you watch some of the people they be interviewing, they are
ignorant.
I mean, you can't believe what they are saying, and they're saying it out loud.
Out loud. It's amazing.
Like, really? You're gonna say this out loud? You know, that you are that dumb that you gonna.
And the reporters get them to repeat it too.
Yeah.
They get it. Can you? And so they tried. The reporters try to hold straight faces listening to them, but they say it out loud. I'm like, oh wow.
I'll tell you. Derek, what's your next topic?
So I wanted to briefly talk about the promise that that former President Donald Trump made to the American people if he were elected to office. So I wanted to see if you guys heard about it. He said in his last address to people that if he were elected to office, that he would put a dome. Let me make sure I get it correct here. Place a dome over this country, Iron Dome, to protect us from hostile sources.
Well, we're going to drop a bomb in a hurricane, so why not a dome?
A dome over the nation to protect us from hostile sources. How does that work?
I guess my question would be, is that like the wall? Like you gonna build a wall, you building a dome? Like I don't even understand.
We're gonna drop a bomb in a hurricane, y'all. I mean, come on, man. A dome is quite fitting for that group. You know what? If you can follow him honestly, wholehearted mortgage the mobile home to send the money and all of that, man. You buy into all of that stuff, man.
Christina?
Know how to follow up with that. I really don't. I'm like out of here. So I do want to thank Jill Lewis Daggs actually today invited me out to a Black History event that happened out in Okaloosa at one of the Catholic churches. And I just want to say I was completely filled. It was an amazing experience today, and I'm so excited about Black History Month coming up. And there's a lot going on and a lot to do. But to the community today, thank you for welcoming. And it was an incredible program that we got to see today.
So with that, I guess to transition to what Christina just did anybody have, any of the hosts have anything that they wanted to share? Any highlights or things that we need to know about for this week or for this past week as well?
I just want to say, we're going to, but it's something in the future that we're doing. Well, on the 15th of February, we're doing the Carol McIntosh initiative. Want to see all of y'all there at the school board if you can make it. It's the Carol McIntosh Education Initiative plan for District 3. And what we want to do is make sure that we have, in the struggling schools, we want to help educate parents and get them involved in their children education as much as possible. Mentoring, of course, we said parents' involvement, absenteeism, conflict and resolution, and career education. Research has shown that parental involvement makes a significant difference in children education performance. Parental involvement. This simple phrase can determine the quality of a child's education, the quality of a school, and even the quality of life available in the community. When parents are involved, children do better in school, and school become a better place in which to learn. And we're going to talk more about that. We're going to on shows coming up. Also on Wednesday, there's a school board. There's a meeting at Lincoln Park Elementary School. It's going to be it's at 7600 Crenshaw Street here in Pensacola. And it's the topic of discussion is going to be struggling schools in District 3. Lincoln Park is going to be a discussion about longevity of the school. We are inviting people to come out and be a part, have your say. You got David William, who was the school board member, District 3, and the superintendent of schools, Keith Leonard. So they're going to be there at Lincoln Park Elementary School, and we want people to come out and engage all the stakeholders in determine and making sure that schools in our community are addressed properly, to make sure they are safe, sound. So we want people to be there to address those issues that they think ought to be addressed. If you got some questions or answers, bring them with you on Wednesday night. So what I wanted to also talk about was some of the, go ahead, Jill, you had something?
I don't really have anything. I thank you for sharing that. Definitely we will, your hosts here will try to be there on February 15th. And the hosts that live there will try to be there Wednesday. Some of us live a little bit far away and have to work, so we might not be there Wednesday, but we'll try to put in our schedule to make sure absolutely we support anything that has to do with Carol. I think, Derek, can you give us, or anybody, an update before we switch to the next thing on COVID RSV, the flu. I know there's something going on. I don't know exactly what it is, but several people have said they've had this, it seems like the flu, but they keep it for a very long time. They can't keep food down. And it's going on for like weeks and months. So I don't know if it's the combination, but can you tell us if COVID's back up and running, higher than usual, RSV, the flu, anybody actually? I just said Derek because he usually gives us our health.
Your health and wellness expert there. Yeah, so I will tell that COVID, we are experiencing a heavier or higher than usual cycle of COVID exposure. It is on the uptick. It had seemingly gone down for just a brief period, but it's back on the rise again at this very point, particularly here in Northwest Florida. We're seeing it in the state. I don't know that it's a national uptick, but certainly we are experiencing a heavier volume between that and RSV. And I'm not sure if people are experiencing what someone described, to your point, to me was a combination of flu, pneumonia, and COVID at that point. And I don't know that the doctors have classified it as a specific illness or have termed it something, but that is a rise. And it could very well be that people are experiencing a combination of that on their end. So what I would recommend again is that people maintain the same COVID protocols that we had exercised in the past. As much as possible, please make sure that you are being socially distant as much as possible. I see people all the time now in public virtually maskless. I'm not telling everybody that everybody needs to wear a mask, but I am telling you that COVID is on the uptick, as well as now we have to pay close attention to RSV as well. So we try our best to still maintain our mask consistency, to be out in public with masks. More so now than ever, people look at me like I'm crazy, like we're way beyond the point of COVID, let it go. But I want to tell you, we're not way beyond the point of COVID, and I'm not letting so I would urge you all to do so. I'm seeing now over the past couple of days, I've seen a lot, and this, if you pay attention to television, you may see this correlate to what it is that we're saying. They are advertising Paxlovid on television at a higher rate than what they ever have been. I don't think I've ever seen a Paxlovid commercial on television, but now I see 2 every 2 hours, or 1 an hour, if you look at it that perspective. So that lets you know that they are advertising the treatments and the protocols for COVID exposure. Please make sure you are aware of that. But the best way to avoid having to take Paxlovid is to remain vigilant, make sure that you are getting your vaccinations. They are still available at your local pharmacies. Wear your mask, wash your hands. All of the protocols that we had in place should still be a part of your daily routine at this point in time. I don't know what I would assume those same things would apply to RSV, but I don't know how different the RSV is contracted versus COVID. So I won't speak too much on that. But if you wear a mask, the hope is that you will keep safe from all of the above.
But Derek, before you move on, is the government still paying for Paxlovid, or do the people have to pay for it? Do you know?
I don't know. That's a good question. I'll take a check out on that and then circle back with us next week. I do know that it's available. I don't know. I don't think they're doing the same protocol that they were in the past, where you could just go to the pharmacy and they would issue it. I'm not sure, but I will take that as a follow-up and circle back with everybody next week.
I think it depends on what kind of insurance you have to, Jerry, because some things the state, like Medicare and Medicaid, they are paying for it. I think everything else would be on your individual insurance.
before we move on, I don't know if y'all heard now, in Ohio, there's a church that brought people in from the cold. And I believe they either wanted to arrest the minister, or they wanted to close the church and what have you heard, Jill? What you hear?
So Ohio was having their very, sub-zero temperatures. And so being a pastor that cares about people, he opened the doors for them to just come in and have a place to lay their heads at night. And in Ohio, there is a law that says that if you're a church, you're not allowed to allow people to spend the night in your building. So they literally arrested him for saving lives of people that would have died had they been on the street.
It's amazing. It's amazing that they tell people, to help people, do charitable work and do charitable giving in the United States, but you can watch somebody freeze to death on the streets and then arrest a person for just trying to help the people to stay warm for a couple of nights. And it was amazing when I heard that. I said, what are they doing? I mean, what have we come to? Have we lost just all humanity, that we don't care anything about anybody anymore? It's amazing to me.
I kind of like the centrist said, and somebody correct me if I'm wrong, I don't know exactly what she said, but she kept saying, we're not following the right North Star.
Right.
She kept saying that. She kept saying, we're falling to pieces in some areas. We're not following the right North Star. I think we've forgotten why we're here on Earth and what our purpose is. And it's supposed to be to love, protect, and uplift, not to stop caring completely. Like, you know how much you have to care? I mean, just imagine, we were all here in Florida. Jerry was in Chicago, so he was freezing anyway. The rest of us were here in Florida, and it got 23 degrees, and I think wind chill was 19 or something, and it was freezing cold. Could you imagine having to be outside of your house during that because you can't afford to have a house for whatever reason, and somebody to open a door and the police to say, no, you got to close the door. They just need to freeze because there's a law that says you can't it's freezing outside. It's not like he opened the doors because he wanted to raise money or he just wanted to break the law. He just wanted to help people stay alive. And we're in a place now where that's not important anymore.
What is so remarkable and amazing about this story is that there are laws on the books that have probably been there for a while, that they would go out and actually arrest a preacher for this. That is so amazing. Then when we talk to Pinterest, she tells us that Biden is bound by the Constitution. Then the Constitution doesn't work when it comes to Amendment 4 and insurrection. The Constitution restricts, but it allows. It's insane to me. It just doesn't make any sense. Are we going to abide by it or are we not? And it appears that it depends on which party or that the perpetrator is a party to. But for people in their right minds in a police department to actually go and tell a man who took people in out of, now if that had been in New York and person of a different persuasion that let somebody into a coffee shop and got them out the cold, they'd be held heroes. But it always works against us. And I said last week on the show, but Jerry disagreed, that the law has never worked for us.
Yeah, I know you're right. The law has never fully worked for us, but sometime it does. Sometime it don't. As
a whole speaking, I'm speaking as a whole.
Yeah, and when I see people like Trump, who have 91 felony counts against him, allegedly, that he's been convicted twice, one for slander, the other one for assault. Some say it use the language rape. So I'm not, and that's probably true. And then insurrection, and people that have did their time, come out of prison, and trying to be good citizens, are denied even the right to vote. But here's a man with 91 felony charges, and he's out on bail right now from DC. And but most people don't even know that he's out on bail. And he just he just got an $83 million judgment against him for slander again.
Here's what we are. We can go and uproot a Manuel Noriega and bring him and put him in a Florida jail. Invade Iran, Iraq, and that leader is hanged from the gallows. But in the United States of America, he is the front runner for president. That's what we are.
It's amazing. Jill?
Hoping, Bill, what prediction? Do you have a new prediction for us? I don't know. I think we need another Bill prediction. You got a different one?
I still forecast that he will not be the party's nominee. I stand on it, and the closer it gets, the more emboldened I am. Y'all watch.
Okay, so
that's why Nikki, look,
will be? You think it'll be Nikki? Is that what you're saying? It's gonna be
no, but somebody in her party is wise enough to say, not so fast, Nikki. Not so. Somebody is smart enough to tell her that we need you. It might come down to you. Somebody has been smart enough to tell her that now. Hey, it wasn't me, but I'm just saying now, y'all watch.
Yeah, she got a lot of millionaire backers that's
she's got the money.
That's keeping her into the game, because the delegates, she got a long way to go to catch up with delegates. Right. Which, she could get a bunch of them if she could win Carolina, but I don't think she's gonna win Carolina.
No.
She might come out of there looking a little better than what we thought she was gonna go in before.
Right. Yeah, no, she's not gonna win. She's not gonna win South Carolina, but they're telling her to hang on because they know something is up. Something's going on, y'all. There's no clear path. I agree, but all things are possible, Jill, for them that have faith.
As long as it's written by him. We don't write that. He does, but yeah.
I got one other thing. How do y'all think the AI or artificial intelligence is going to affect the election upcoming? I think it's
well, with Joe Biden, with the way that thing ran last week, and it sounded just like Joe Biden, man. Them jokers can take your voice, man. But I think it's going to have I think it's going to play, the closer it gets to November, I think it's going to have if they keep that up. Now, it is illegal what was done with Joe Biden's voice on that robocall. It's illegal, but man, those guys go through so many different channels to conceal who they are and what they're doing. But I believe, Jerry, it's going to play a major role. And AI, then outside influences, namely Russia and China, I believe that it will play a major part.
Christina, what you think?
I think everybody needs to vote. I think everybody needs to register to vote. I think we can't be still. We can't be silent. I think it's going to be Trump. I think there is going to be interference, and I think we need to counter it. I think we have to change the narrative. We have to get the message out, and we have to work together in spite of our differences.
I agree with you.
I agree wholeheartedly, Christina.
We need an overwhelming vote, just like we did in before in 2020. We needed a huge voter turnout, and it was a huge voter turnout, but it was a big turnout on the other side as well. But I don't believe that it's going to be as big on the other side as it was before. I think that because there are people, I've seen on television who went with the Lincoln Project or the Lincoln Party. It's a bunch of those people have left the Republican Party.
That's right.
And I'm hoping that it looked like they're gonna probably be supporting Joe Biden in the election because if I know they don't believe that Nikki Haley's gonna win this thing outright. It would be nice, I don't know how much she loved democracy in the country, but I know she don't believe there's ever been racism in the country.
Right.
That right there in itself has that that's a problem.
That says it all. I mean, that clearly says it all. And it's so different than actually what she wrote in her book. It's so different than the path her family took to get here.
She's a politician. She's pandering.
Oh, 100%. And not just a politician. I mean, for somebody to deny that on that kind of level, I don't even know what to say to that. There's not a lot I can say. We have her who is just outright lying and trying to appease a base. We've got Donald Trump, who is a white supremacist and crazy and just out there in left field. And so I really like the Biden-Harris administration. Everything that they came out and said that they were going to fight for, they've done. Every single thing. Now, whether or not it got approved, got through, whatever, they have fought. They've fought to help with the student loans. They fought to help with infrastructure. They fought to help rural counties like my own, which are getting broadband in schools and different areas. They fought for our infrastructure. They're fighting for our water. They are fighting. They are talking about HBCUs. They are talking about how states haven't properly funded, and there's a huge disconnect between how the federal money that's supposed to go down to public schools, how HBCUs have been left out of that and underfunded across the nation, and they're blaring it. So they are here for us. Their word stands on its own, and I'm grateful for them. And it's really either them or we lose our democracy.
And as much as the Republicans told us we were headed toward recession, it did not go that way. They wanted so bad for it to reach those levels, but the Biden administration and the inflation is doing so much better. So yeah, we've done well under the Biden administration. Absolutely.
The Inflation and Reduction Act had a whole lot of things in it that helped stymie and make sure that the inflation rate didn't rise in the country. The Chip and Science Act, which he signed into law, that's the Infrastructure and Investment Job Act, all of these, and the Housing and Urban Development budget that was put out, that's really it's helping people around the country, but people don't really, if it's not affecting you right there immediately, sometimes people don't see it, or they just not really paying attention to what's going on. And I would say that the Democrat Party overall, I would not say the Democrat Party overall, I would say the White House overall have not did enough to put their message out there. I think Kamala Harris is out there now messaging as much as she can, and I love to see her out there. And I think they should have had her out there more earlier because she's, and I don't know if it's to not overshadow Joe Biden or something, but I think that she should have been out there much earlier, especially hitting our communities, in the Black communities around the country, like she's doing at the colleges, the HBCUs and all of that. But I think there has to be something in the that's in the Black community where they can place her, of course, to be safe and all of that, but also for her to address those issues that a lot of people have. Personally, I think that's just my opinion. Our time is just about run out. Again, I got 2 books that I want to recommend for my books of the week. I got this, A Testament of Hope. It's the Essential Writing and Speeches of Martin Luther King Jr. It's a great book. And then this book is by John Meekum. It's His Truth is Marching On by John Lewis. Can y'all say, okay, John Lewis, The Power of Hope. And I think that we should have a library in our house as much as possible at all times, so that we can learn our own history as much as we can on our own without depending on somebody else until the day comes when we are taught it for real in school. On that note, Derek, I'm turning it back to you.
Well, we thank you for tuning in this evening to another great show. We ask that you join us next week at our regular scheduled time. On behalf of all the co-hosts, we thank you for tuning in. Have a great week, and we'll see you next Sunday, same time, same place.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Night.